Yesterday we had learned the Mishnah. Yesterday we learned one little piece before the Mishnah, a new piece of Gemara before the Mishnah over there. The Gemara was talking about a mistake that a person made, and will he have to bring a carbon? So Rabbi Yossi innovated this halacha. He revealed this halacha that when a person makes a mistake on trying to do a mitzvah, so in that type of situation, he doesn't have to bring a carbon. And in the Gemara, so that was the previous Mishnah, and in the Gemara, Rav Huna added or extended this law, not himself, but he said in the name of Rabbi Yossi that Rabbi Yossi used to say this law as well by a case of an oilas ha'oif, where a person mistakenly ate the carbon oila, which is supposed to be totally burned, and he mistakenly ate it. And even in that case, he's not going to have to bring a carbon me'ilah. He won't have to bring this carbon, because he was overwhelmed, thinking, worried, concerned that he needs to eat a carbon chatos, and thinking this is a carbon chatos, and he doesn't want it to end up becoming nicer, becoming left over. And so he's trying to fulfill the mitzvah, and mistakenly he eats this carbon, and it actually is a carbon oila. It's a burnt offering. And so even in that case, Rav Huna quotes Rabbi Yossi that the law is he doesn't have to bring that the carbon me'ilah. He's called a ta'a b'dvar mitzvah. He's made a mistake, but he's involved in a mitzvah. And the Gemara says it's a little different than our Mishnah's case, because our Mishnah was a case where you ended up doing the mitzvah of shaking the lulav afterwards. You did carry the lulav in the street on Shabbos, but you ended up doing a mitzvah, and so there it would make more sense. It's more understandable that you're going to be exempt from the carbon. Here, you didn't end up doing a mitzvah. Instead, you did a sin by eating the burnt offering. Nevertheless, you're going to be exempt. So that's why it says there's that halacha as well. But the Gemara had asked a question from a case of a carbon tamid. A carbon tamid means the daily sacrifice that we bring in the morning and in the afternoon, and we read about it. Some people say it in karbanos. It's the parsha that's read at Rosh Chodesh. So we bring two sacrifices every day, two lambs, the morning lamb. These are called the carbon tamid. So this carbon is supposed to be checked for a mum 4 days before it's slaughtered. And what happened was you took one that wasn't checked for a mum, and you brought it as a carbon on Shabbos. On Shabbos, we normally bring the carbon tamid. As a carbon, it's permissible to shecht it. Normally, you're not allowed to shecht on Shabbos, but as a carbon tamid, this is permissible, and as well as a carbon musaf. So these are permissible to shecht on Shabbos.
Are these carbonas eaten?
Oh. Carbon tamid is a carbon oila. It's a burnt offering, so it's not eaten. No.
Okay. And the other one?
The other what?
The other carbon.
What other carbon?
Well,
he brought two carbons. He brought the tamid, and then he brought the afternoon tamid. We're not talking about any other carbonos.
No, I thought he said two.
He ended up eating from the carbon tamid. He made a tamid, and then he took a bite.
He said it wasn't eaten because it's a carbon. It's burnt.
Right, it's not supposed to be eaten.
1 second. So what happened here was not about eating it. This is a different case. The previous case was he took a bite out of a carbon oila bird offering that was supposed to be burned, and he thought it was a carbon chatas. Here we're talking about the next case that I just meant that I'm in the midst of mentioning is this: he shechted the korban tamid on Shabbos, but it was a korban that was not. It was not.
It's not checked for a mum.
For a mum, for a blemish. So
it was not properly checked, in which case it invalidates it.
So it becomes it's invalidated. That's right. And so, does he bring a korban for doing the sin by mistake? So it says that he's chayav chatos. He has to bring a korban chatos. So so it comes out. So he brings a korban chatos, but you would think that he made a mistake on a mitzvah. So the Gemara's answer is that it's different. This is a different case. It's not the typical case of a mitzvah, because this case, the Gemara says he took it from the wrong pen of animals, and this is it was such a mistake. It's called a karav lamezit. It was such a type of act that's not exact, and that's not the same as a regular mistake. It's called a karav lamezit. It's close to doing it on purpose. And as Isaac told us yesterday, the term would be gross.
He was so grossly negligent that it ought to be considered intentional. Correct.
So that is the end of that little piece of Gemara. That under normal circumstances, Rabbi Yossi holds that a person is exempt when he makes a mistake involved in Torah and doing a mitzvah. But in the case of there is a case where he's not exactly exempt. It's not exactly a mistake. It's sort of like an in-between mistake and on purpose. It's a gross negligence, and he is, and that is the case where he brought this korban that was he took it from the wrong place even. So it's not like it was easy to make such a mistake. He shouldn't have made this mistake, but he did. He's going to be responsible, have to bring this korban chatos, sin offering. Okay. Now comes the next the Mishnah. We started this. We went to the bottom of the page actually. So the Mishnah mentions that a woman is allowed to take. Mute everyone here.
That this was re-dried after the linens were dried. I remember that this was washed. So this is so that's all clean.
Okay. So sorry about that. Again, the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that a woman is allowed to take from her son and from her husband the lulav and return it to water on Shabbos. And Rabbi Yehuda repeats that. He says the Shabbos you can be machzirin, you can return it, and Yom Tov you can add to the water. In Chol HaMoed you can be machlifin, you could actually switch the water and use new water, spill out the old water, put in new water. And then the Mishnah said a new halacha, another halacha, katan that knows how to wave the lulav, he is going to be chayiv and lulav. This is the obligation of a child. Now, the Gemara says that why would you think a woman would not be allowed to take the lulav? The Gemara says, well, because a woman's not obligated, I would think that maybe it's muktzah for her. And so the Gemara concludes, kamash malan, and the way Rashi explains it is since it's fit for men to use, it's considered a kli, a vessel, and then anyone could actually handle it. It's interesting that Rashi doesn't say that since women could shake the lulav, therefore, in other words, they're allowed to fulfill a mitzvah, even if they're not obligated in doing it. So it's interesting that Rashi uses this reason that, in other words, the Gemara leaves it vague. The Gemara says, "Kamash malan," it's permissible. It comes as here that it's allowed. but it doesn't really spell out what exactly is this heter. Now, women are exempt, so why are they allowed to carry it? So the Meiri says they're allowed to, they're allowed to wave it and do the mitzvah. So that would be a reason why it's not considered muktzah for them. Rashi learned the reason is because once the men can do it, so therefore, if men are allowed to, therefore it becomes a kli. So it's interesting because there is an argument between the Ashkenazim and Sephardim. Women say a bracha when they shake, if they want to shake the lulav. The Ashkenazic custom tradition is not only are they allowed to shake it, they say a bracha when they shake it, and not only that, but some say that women are really obligated in shaking the lulav in today's day and age because they've accepted it on themselves like an obligation. So among Ashkenazic Jews, women generally shake the lulav and they say a bracha on it. Among Sephardic Jews, I'm told women do not say a bracha. They're allowed to shake it, but it's not as simple. So they don't say a bracha. If I'm not mistaken, that's what I'm told, and it's based on this idea that can you say a bracha if you're not really obligated? I mean, the bracha sounds like you're obligated. Asher kedeshanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu. It sounds like the bracha makes it sound like they're obligated, and they're really not obligated. So the question is, why, according to the Ashkenaz, really are you allowed to say such a bracha? That would be more of a question on Ashkenaz than the Sephardim, because the bracha sounds like you're saying we're obligated. But anyway, when explaining the Gemara, it seems, I guess you could say both ways. Even Sephardim could say that still women are allowed to shake it. They don't say a bracha, but they could shake. They're allowed to shake the lulav. And because they could shake the lulav and fulfill it as a mitzvah that they're not obligated in doing, that should make it permissible for them to touch and to handle. But I guess Rashi doesn't explain it that way because he sees a general halacha coming from this as well, that anything that men are allowed to use, even if women would not be acceptable, they wouldn't have no reason to use it. Once it's acceptable for all men to use, it no longer can have a status of muktzah. Rashi's halacha applies even if it wouldn't be something that women would use for a mitzvah. But still, according to Hilchos Muktzah, the laws of what's not allowed to be moved, this would not fall into that category, because anything that men are obligated to use, and it's called a kli for men, would make it not muktzah for anyone, for women as well. Then the Gemara says, a katan hayedeh l'naneya. Before we do that, we should mention, now the Mishnah spoke about returning the lulav into water on Yantiv. And that is something that's not so it's not as simple as it sounds. The Mishnah makes it sound pretty simple. You're allowed to return it to water. Well, that applies as long as the lulav with the hadassim and aravos, the hadassim don't have those little like berries. But if they have these berries or some type of flower for the berry and it's going to open up, then it could be a problem. Now, of course, that's rare, but I'm just mentioning it because it does apply. That now, the other thing that is So that's one halacha that's applicable to this. Another halacha that's applicable to this is do you have to return it to the water that it was in originally, or is it allowed to be returned to any water? Can be returned to any water. How to return machzirin? What does Rashi say over here? Machzirin, because mikan not lum hayon. This is where you took it out of today. So Rashi makes it sound like you have to return it to that water. You have to return it to that water. Now there is a problem because in Hilchas Shabbos, let me just pull a Shabbos here. Oh, in Hilchas Shabbos, it does deal with putting flowers in water, and it says over there that branches of a tree you're allowed to place them. It doesn't mention. We'll talk about flowers shortly, but it mentions that branches of a tree that were prepared to be used before Shabbos, so they're called a kli. You're allowed to move them. It's not muktzah, so you're allowed to put them in water on Shabbos, as long as they don't have flowers that are going to open up from the wetness of the water. And you should be careful not to put them in water not to put water in a vessel fresh.
Not to put fresh water in, right?
But you put it into water that already was in a vessel. And even if they were in a vessel with water, you're not allowed to be moisif, add water to them on Shabbos or on Yom Tov, because it's called a tayrach to make you're making a kli, which would be prohibited. So the way it's brought in Shulchan Aruch here is that you are allowed to put branches in water on Shabbos as long as the water was there before. Even though they weren't in that same water, they weren't in that water before, but as long as you're not putting water together, you're not, making a vase with water, but there's water already there. So all you're doing is, it's b'mayim shahayu b'kli mikvar. It's water that was in a kli from before. It's okay. So what comes out is that it seems that Shulchan Aruch paskins different than Rashi over here. Rashi seems to hold that you would need the same water to be there. According to Shulchan Aruch, the issue is that as long as there's water already in any pot, you could put these flowers, the branches into that pot. That should be permissible.
You cannot take fresh water on Shabbos if it wasn't prepared before Shabbos.
Right.
Because the water is becoming the kli, creating a new kli that wasn't prepared before Shabbos.
Yeah, it's interesting. Why is that called making a kli? But for whatever reason, that's the way. When we learn Hilchas Shabbos, when we learn the Gemara Shabbos, we'll have to understand it better. But yes, that's what it's considered. That it's making a kli. I mean, we mentioned that yesterday.
So it has nothing to do with the fact that the water is giving new life to the flower that is now sprouting. Or at least this argument isn't over that.
Right.
But the fact is that The fact that you're completing an action, that's the kli.
The fact that you're right, it's called tikkun kli. Now, what exactly does that mean? It's a Torah. No, it's not tikkun kli. It's Torah tikkun kli. Isaac, we got it wrong. It's not tikkun kli. It's Torah of it's the bother of making a kli. That's what it's considered. It's a Torah to fix it. So what it seems like is you're fixing the branches. It's the Torah to keep the branches fresh, or is it a Torah to make a vase? I don't think it's called making a vase. I think it's the fruit, the lulav. You're doing a tircha of getting water in order to be masak in the kli.
Rabbi, I think Mordechai's got his hand up.
Yeah, I see Mordechai. Yes, sorry for not answering you yet. Yes, Mordechai.
Yes, what I do is my lulav and arba, meaning I wrap it in wet paper towels and store it inside a lulav holder. So
it works?
in other words, yeah, it seems to work, although usually by halfway I usually have to change the aravas.
Thank you. You make me feel good, because anything that I do never works.
I've never had to change.
So I just, well, the thing is that I'm always taking my lulav out and shaking it with people. So it ends up that whatever I do never works. So I always just buy extra aravos and even hadassim before, and I switch in the middle of the sukkah, sometimes twice. But,
why not just use paper towels and cover the bottom of the stems of the aravot? That way it continues to get
moisture,
water, and keeps it moist.
I wish that would work.
And I've never had a problem with aravot. I mean, I buy an extra set just in case, but I've never, in the last 10 years or so since I've been doing this, I've never had any problems.
So yeah, it sounds good. I don't know. For me, it doesn't seem to. I don't seem to have luck with it. I guess you have to have a green thumb.
I think some rabbi just do it. That's all.
But anyway, yeah, maybe I'll try it again. But in any event, so this is a halacha regarding the putting flowers, or putting, if the flowers are open, it would basically be it would seem to be an interesting halacha that maybe you would be allowed to even put flowers in if someone comes on Shabbos to your, they come on Shabbos with flowers. It's just Shabbos, just turned Shabbos. They arrived at your house. Would you be allowed to put those flowers in a flower pot on Shabbos, in a vase, on Shabbos? So to add water is a problem. But if you have one that has water in it already, maybe even has some flowers in it, and your flowers are already opened up, then it would seem, according to Shulchan Aruch, that you would be allowed, as long as they're opened up already. So then it would seem that you're allowed to. However, if they're not opened up yet, and you have this problem, or you want to be machmer like Rashi, then the other option is put them in a vase that doesn't have any water in it. I don't know how long they'll last, but at least they'll last while your guests are there. At least they'll, it'll make the table look nice.
You put them with wet paper towels.
Yeah, not on Shabbos. That's not going to work. But if you have your
talking about has to be done before Shabbat.
Yeah,
you never do it on Shabbat.
So okay, so that's the story about returning to water, returning the lulav, and then we mentioned on Yom Tov you're even allowed to be moisif. You're allowed to add some water as long as there's initially some water there. You can add, and on Chol HaMoed you could. It's a mitzvah, actually. We said it's a mitzvah to change the water. and in order to, they shouldn't dry out. Okay. I should mention there is one sefer that brings down this concept on Shabbos, that the problem with on Yom Tov changing the water. You're not allowed to change the water on Yom Tov is because that's considered like watering seeds. In other words, our understanding was it's a toirach, a tircha, but seems that the one of the Sfarim brings down the Michtam, and brings down that it's more like a gzeira. Seems like a similar, considered hashkoas zroim, considered similar to for watering seeds. So that's why you wouldn't be allowed to do it all for new water. You can add, but you can't switch the water. Okay. See, Rashi uses this term. It's a toirach l'skune moneh. Rashi uses this. The toirach l'skune moneh. It's a bother that you're fixing this vessel. You're fixing it, which seems like it's I think it's going on the lulav. I know that's what it seems like. Let me just see if in the back if they mention this. What are we on? Base Amud Aleph.
You driving or you parked?
That would be really cool if I was driving. Could drive and do this. I'm parked. I don't believe you can drive and give a shear. What is that?
I said Baruch Hashem.
Yeah. Okay. They don't mention anything. Yeah. Okay. So let's continue. So we were mentioning the laws of returning putting the lulav in water. Now we're talking about the next thing is the katan hayedel l'nanea, a child that knows how to shake the lulav. So he's chayiv in lulav. So the famous question here, really, which we should have asked yesterday, is, but you don't need to wave the lulav. Waving the lulav is nice, but we just learned earlier on the top of this page, 42a, that mida agba hey nafek bay. Once you lift it up, you fulfill the mitzvah. So why does a child need to know how to wave it? So there's really two ways of learning this. One way is that the waving of the lulav is a important part to fulfill the mitzvah b'shleimus completely. And if you don't wave it, you did do the mitzvah. However, when it comes to chinuch, and I think this is a very powerful message, when it comes to chinuch, to education, there is no such thing as education on the, just winging it. You can't wing it when it comes to chinuch. You got to do it right. Chinuch is only an obligation when the child can do it right. That's when you can do chinuch. If it's going to be done in a haphazard, winging, way where you're just getting done with it and being yaitza, okay, I lifted it up. That's not called chinuch, and that's not appropriate even to be mechanech the child. So when the child knows how to do it properly, knows how to wave, then you do the chinuch. And when you do chinuch that way, the child it'll actually make an impact on the child. So that's one way of learning this. There is another way of learning this, and that is that really, do you need to do the waving? Yes. waving is an integral part of the mitzvah. Halacha l'Moshe Sinai. You have to wave the lulav. Really? Didn't we say earlier that once you lift it up, you are yotze? The answer is that concept that you're yotze, that you fulfill the mitzvah, is only because it's fit to wave. And once it's fit to wave, it's considered as if you waved it. It's good enough. It's called kol haroi lebila ein bila ma'akeves, a famous law about the carbon mincha, that once it's fit to be, you're supposed to mix the carbon mincha, the flour, and it's supposed to be mixed. And the thing is, if it's in a certain measure that's too much to mix it, you're not yotze. But if it's less than that, you fulfill the mitzvah of the carbon mincha. The question is, what do you mean? You didn't mix it. No, but since it's capable of being mixed, it's ki'ilu, it's considered as if it's mixed. The same thing is when you didn't wave the lulav. If you know how to wave it, if you're capable of waving it, then you fulfilled the mitzvah once you lift it up. But if a child doesn't know how to wave the lulav, so in such a case, he wouldn't fulfill the mitzvah. In other words, the nanuim is a major part of the mitzvah, and if he doesn't know how to wave it, he's not chayiv in chinuch. Waving is an obligation. Oh, I didn't wave it, I was yotze. Yeah, because when you picked it up, you fulfilled it because it's considered fit to be waved. But so in other words, if someone lifts it up, they fulfill the mitzvah because it's fit to be waved. But does it need to be waved? Yes. So a child, in order to be obligated in chinuch, would need to be able to know how to wave it, because waving is part of the mitzvah. So that would be an obligation. That would be a necessity. You'd have to know how to wave it. Okay. Then comes the next brisa. Yes. Ezra, do you want to say something? Someone want to say something?
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay. No. So it comes out that there's two interpretations here, which teach us a little about chinuch and the obligation of chinuch, and also about the laws of nanuim. How to really explains the previous Gemara about nanuim. Really, are nanuim so integral? I mean, for sure, to fulfill the mitzvah properly, you have to do the nanuim. Of course, there's many Kabbalistic ideas in doing the waving. But the question is the waving, do you actually have to do it? Or because it's fit to be waved, is that good enough? And that's at least the way the Chassam Sofer learns, that it's roy, it's fit to be waved, it's good enough. And even if you didn't wave it, the mitzvah was done. It was done, in an acceptable manner. Okay. The Gemara then brings a brisa. The brisa goes through a number of different cases. When is a child chayiv in chinuch? And of course, we've spoken before about what does that mean, about the child being chayiv in chinuch. Is it the child, or is it the parents being obligated? But that's a discussion of the Rishonim. But here it just tells us what stage is the child going to have this? Is there going to be this concept of chinuch? So the Gemara brings a brisa, Tana Rabbanon. The rabbis taught in a brisa, or a tesefta. Actually, a tesefta. And what does it say here? So it talks about shaking lulav, waving the lulav. That the child knows how to wave it. He's chayiv and lulav. And I should mention that when it says waving it, so it says these chayiv in So once he knows how to wave it, so what does that mean really? He knows how to wave it. So it's brought down that he knows to go forward, backward, up and down. It seems that maybe it's not necessarily in all the directions. It's a little vague. It doesn't really spell it out. Maybe Shulchan Aruch spells it out better. Let's see where this is brought in Shulchan Aruch. Oh, that's right. Tafresh Nun. Yeah, it must be right there. Tafresh Nun. Oh, I don't have this.
Rabbi, do you have your whole library inside your car?
That's what I was just thinking.
I took a few svarim because I knew I was going to use them.
That's what I was just thinking.
Katan hayudel ananea. Right. So what does it mean hayudel ananea? So the Mishnah Berurah here says, Hainu moilech umevi maila umayrit. To and fro, up and down. So bucky mamish benanuim. Even if he's not a bucky mamish in the wavings, that's good enough. He knows. The Bir Halacha says even if he doesn't know how to make a bracha, but he knows how to do the wavings, you should let him do the wavings. And the Shulchan Aruch uses the term aviv chayiv liknaisloi. The father is chayiv to buy him a lulav in order to be mechanech him in mitzvahs. That's the way it's brought in Shulchan Aruch. He has to buy him. The Marshal says you don't have to buy it. After the father's yaitze, he could use the father's.
Does he have to understand that it's a manaslu?
So that's going to be an issue when outside Israel. Once the child is a very interesting question.
He has to be old enough to know give it back.
Yeah, you know what? It really opens up a little sort of a complicated situation. It goes back to Ezra's question. By the way, Ezra, I looked up what I mentioned to you. I looked that up. In Siman Shin Vav, the laws of Shabbos, it's brought down this concept, and this was Ezra had a question a little while back about matana manas lahachzir. What about just giving it straight out? Wouldn't that be better if you gave it straight out as a gift, and then the guy can give the gift back? But why do you want to give it as a matana al manas lahachzir, as a gift on the condition to give it back? It's sort of like it sounds more questionable. You're giving it, is it really his? He's giving it back.
Yeah, but then you can take him then to Besdin and say, we were clear. If you want it back, you have a ground to say, I said I'm the Naslahachzir.
Right. As a lawyer, you got a good point. But as a congregant of a shul, and you sort of assume that the guy will give it back. You're not expecting him to go home and run away with it. He's trying to do a mitzvah. So as a congregant, and if you want to do the mitzvah better, so you might think maybe I should just give it to him as a gift. Did not say the whole matana manas lahachzir. I'm giving it to him as a gift, and when he gives it back to me, he'll give it back to me as a gift, and we're all yaitza, and maybe this is better. So in Shulchan Aruch, it actually says no. This is not acceptable. In the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, he brings down that there's a big problem that when you to do it's considered like a transaction on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do things that are considered like a transaction on Shabbos, and that are. And he talks about buying aliyahs even, and how is that allowed? And where is it? Siman Shin Vav. Let me just pull it up here.
You are actually transferring title.
So Lipsite Tzedakah Niyam talks about. Misha Berach Nedel Tzedakah. Here it is. So it says, Yesh Oimim, some say that a place where the minhag is to make a Misha Berach, he gives a neder for tzedakah. So it's usher to make sort of like make this type of a commitment. You should say, make a Misha Berach instead of like making like a purchase. The minhag is lahakil. Because you're allowed to paisik tzedakah on Shabbos, so therefore it's acceptable. But this that they make commitments to give a certain amount of money after Shabbos for the chassan who darshans, he said this is not acceptable because you're only allowed to give for tzedakah or for other mitzvahs, not for davar or shus. And it's prohibited. It's called v'daber davar. Okay, so these are halachas of Shabbos. Then he says to give kalim as a gift to the chassan. You want to give, sir? You have gifts and shul. You're giving it to the chassan who's darshaning. It's not appropriate because you're not allowed to give a matana on Shabbos. Only if it's meichel or mashkel or tzerich hayoim, for whatever reason, food is permissible, and something that's changing ownership is not allowed, and even what did you say? Okay, anyway, so he goes through all these different things about buying aliyahs, and he talks about that are you buying an aliyah or are you just making a neder l'tzedakah? So if you're buying an aliyah, it could be a problem. He says, so the Alter Rebbe has a chumrah here. He has a very interesting chumrah. He says, if you want to bid for an aliyah, that's not so simple. But if you're bidding and you're going to give the money anyway to tzedakah, so then it's not a purchase. Then it's you're bidding for tzedakah. That's okay. So that's an interesting halacha that comes out of this. That, in other words, imagine everyone that puts up a bid has to pay it, even though they don't get the aliyah. That would be quite a nice shul which could be built on such aliyah, such a bidding.
What? I missed that.
You missed that? He says what's appropriate is that like some Anshe Maisa do, and what is that? It's called the Chasidei Oistreich. I saw it brought down. The Magen Avram, I think, brings this down. So the Alter Rebbe brings it in Shulchan Aruch. He just says Anshe Maisa, but it's called the Chasidei Oistreich, the Astreicher Chasidim. What do they do? Brought in the Magen Avram. He says whatever they mention to give in their bid, they give to tzedakah, even if someone else bought the mitzvah. Because if it's done in such a way, it's not a purchase. You're promising to tzedakah. It's psikas tzedakah. It's mutter even to buy places in shul, seats in shul, and it's not a problem because each person is making a bid. They're actually paying that bid even if they don't get it. Anyway, so this is talking about purchasing. Now comes the esrog law, and this is why I brought this. That there's a minhag. Okay, I'm going to skip that. Here. Oh no, I'll just translate. That there's a minhag to buy the esrogim, to sell the esrogim after someone does their mitzvah with it. That would be similar to selling a place in shul. That you're not really supposed to do that, only if it's done in a way that's explained. But in the time of the mitzvah, that you're not buying it only to fulfill the mitzvah and to return it, that is considered that it's permissible because you're not buying the actual esrog, you're only buying it for the mitzvah. And even on the first day, that you have to be koineh the guf of esrog, you have to own it, since you're acquiring it al manas lahachziroi, on the condition to return it. It comes out that you didn't buy it only for the mitzvah alone. But to actually buy an esrog, acquire an esrog or a shofar on Yom Tov, even if it's the only way to fulfill a mitzvah, you would not be allowed to do it because you can't be doicha this shvus to do a mitzvah sasei daraisa. You can't be doicha, you can't push off this rabbinic law in order to fulfill. So it's not an actual owning. You're not acquiring the guf of the esrog. Very interesting. And this is a Magen Avram. The Alter Rebbe brings it from the Magen Avram in Shulchan Aruch. That you're not actually acquiring the essence of the esrog. What you are acquiring is for the mitzvah. You're acquiring the esrog for the mitzvah. You're not actually acquiring it as yena kind of gufa esrog ela mitzvasei belvad. How exactly to translate that? It's can't really fully explain that, but it's done in a way that's permissible on Yom Tov. In other words, it's not so simple. Matana amanas lahachzir on Yom Tov for an esrog is not as simple as it sounds, because you're not allowed to acquire something on Yom Tov. But if you're acquiring it for the mitzvah, so it's done in a way that it's like a mitzvah acquisition is okay. Because you're returning it afterwards, it shows that it's a mitzvah acquisition. But to actually give it as a full gift, that would be a problem of the laws of Yom Tov.
Question.
Yes,
okay, so the minhag in Sephardic shuls is to bid on aliyot, and the one with the highest bid gets the aliyah.
Well, let me tell you a secret. Even in Lubavitch, they do it, even though the Alter Rebbe speaks against it, but it's the only way the shuls can exist.
No, but my point is, based on what you've been discussing before, that's like buying something.
Right. That's now. I'm sure there must be other.
This is done on Shabbat as well. If the Yom Tov falls on a Shabbat, and it's done on a Yom Tov, and in general, this is the way they do things. So, based on what you said before, are you telling me now that that's problematic?
No, what I'm telling you is that the Alter Rebbe has a chumrah about it. Does the most shul follow the Alter Rebbe? No. Do any shuls follow the Alter Rebbe about this? I don't think so. Maybe 770, and they sell the aliyahs before Yom Tov, but it's this is the way it's the way you're saying, the way it's done all over. The Alter Rebbe has a chumrah, and he says that a Yorei Shamayim should try to be careful about this. So it's brought in the Magen Avraham, this type of thing, this Anshe Maisa, the way these people used to do it, and that would be acceptable way to do it. But to say that what everyone's doing is wrong, we're not really saying that.
When Mashiach comes, we'll decide whether who decides whether or not to continue.
But this is that's the minhag. Again, it's not. This is the chumrah.
So we're not selling it before the holiday. We're actually selling it on the holiday.
Yes.
And in the Lubavitch shul as well.
You're buying it and you're using it, and after Yom Tov, there's nothing left, right?
It's okay. It's there's a chumrah that a person would could do it before. It's a chumrah. It's not the straight letter of the law. Anyway,
if you're that serious, you don't have to buy any of them. Just give the tzedakah.
If you want to do it that way, but you're going to get less bidders.
I didn't say that. I said if you personally,
if you want to
that machmir, don't buy anything, and after Yom Tov, give the $10,000 to the shul anyway.
Or if you want it, or if you're going to give the $10,000 anyway to the shul, you could bid it. You could bid it, and maybe you'll get the aliyah as well.
I'm saying if you want to be super chumrah, it's no problem with me.
Because also, all the bidding that occurs right before Simchat Torah.
Yeah.
You
can only do it.
Disapproved, but done.
you can only do all that bidding on Yontiv, because people are they drank a little, and otherwise you wouldn't be able to make that type of money. So yeah, listen, this is the minhag of the world, and it's
Rabbi, we're not talking about Lubavitch. I'm talking about a regular, they don't drink, well, I really wouldn't know. The fact is that they drink after the fact, but the bidding is occurring, between Mincha and Maariv, so
right, but still, people are in a mode of happiness and excitement. And before Yontiv, I don't know if they would be able to make that type of money. You know what I mean? People are in a mode of Yontiv, it's Simchas Torah. As before, I don't know, Anyway, bottom line is, if the shul wants to be machmer, it seems like there is room to be machmer. Of course, it deserves to be looked into, what the other poskim say, what the other opinions are. One of the places to look would be in the Piskei Teshuvos, see what he brings down from other opinions and later opinions. I just read you what I read you was the Alter Rebbe regarding the halacha of the esrog, the issue of giving a gift of an esrog without. That was the main point. But it was interesting in the same paragraph. He talks about this other interesting issue. Okay, so getting back to what we were talking about. Oh, so that actually what we just heard. Now you have to think about the issue of a child, because if you take what we just said, if you take that literally, which is that you're not giving, the reason you're not giving it as you're not giving it as a full gift, you're only giving it to fulfill the mitzvah, and that's why you're doing it a matana manas lahachzir. Now, when you give it to a child after you fulfilled the mitzvah, let's say you're in Israel and you don't need it the second day, so you've now just fulfilled the mitzvah, you're just going to give your child your lulav. Is that a problem? Because you're not giving it to him as a gift that he's going to return. He's not returning it. He can't. The child can't return something. So it's only a gift. And when you're giving it to him as a gift, would that be a problem on Yom Tov? Because he can't return it. You get what I'm saying? Does this create a problem? But I don't think so.
It creates a bigger problem if you're giving it to him on the Nas Lahasir. If you're just giving it to him and he's not giving it back, it's one thing.
But that's one. But yeah, but that's what we're dealing with. You're
Right.
giving it, he's not giving it back. But the problem is, then did you actually give a gift on Yom Tov? Because now he's not. But I don't know if it's a problem, and I'll tell you why. I think even though you gave it to him as a gift, it's only for the mitzvah. You're not giving it to him to own. You're giving it to him as a gift for the mitzvah. You didn't do the almanat lahachzir because you can't do almanat lahachzir because you can't return. But it doesn't mean that you gave it as a gift that he's supposed to own the guf ha'esrei. You're still
Right.
doing it in your way, that you're only doing it for the mitzvah. So it's not a problem. Yes, Jeffrey.
Yes, not like that, but the father is together with the son, so he's watching it very carefully. So that's why it's lechanech, and it's very nice. We have the same thing with tefillin. You can't really teach the child until they can take care of it correctly. So they have to know how to naneya, because that's what could damage it when you start to play with it. So you don't want them to play with. You have to teach them to shake it and to be very respectful and very, very gentle. And this is part of learning. This is going to school. And same thing before with the flowers and with the lulav, putting it back in the water. You don't want to be torach because they didn't have pipes with indoor water. They had to go and get the water and bring it to the house. So that's why he used that word torach. The conditions are different.
I understand that. Something I was thinking about is would that same halacha apply now? Is it considered like a takana that that the rabbis made, and so even though now there's no tircha, then now there's no bother, would it still apply? It sounds from the Shulchan Aruch that it does apply because they initially made such a decree, even though now it doesn't really apply. Right. But initially there was such a rule.
I had exactly this experience because I knew this person was going to come, and he asked me, "What should we bring?" And I said, "No, it's not necessary to bring. We have all the food ready." Okay, but I knew he was going to bring something. So I put aside a vase. I washed it out, and I put water in. And then when he came, all he had to do was
Put it in. But that's only, we got to remember, only if the flowers are fully opened.
Yeah. Well,
It's not always so simple to do that.
correct. And there's no way for you to judge it in advance.
I like the other way. Just no flour, no water. There's a vase. You stick them in, and goodbye. You know, that's my way. You get out of all
but then they'll
problems.
be sure to die.
Okay, but it's too bad. They shouldn't have come late. For the you know, you came too late on Shabbos. It's the guest problem. You know.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's the way that's my.
But also you're
Right.
also because if you plan it in advance, I think also then you can move it. So if it's uncomfortable where it is on the table, then you actually can move it, and that's one of the issues also. At least I learned early on that the question was also if once it was there on the table, maybe you had to leave it on the table. But if you have this in mind beforehand,
Right.
then before Shabbos, you know it's not going to be muktzah. You're going to if you can't see your guest across the table, you're going to move it. It's okay.
Again, moving them is also not so simple if it's not opened. So you know. But okay, fine. Okay, continue. Let's continue over here because my time is really up. So basically, so a child that knows how to wave it. So we said he's chayiv and lulav. Lesatif, when he knows how to do an ituf. What is an ituf? Ituf is the way we put on our talis, and it's supposed to be done. It's called the ituf hayish me'elim. The way we wrap it around and throw it around, and sometimes the people behind you get hit with your.
Let me tell you. I got hit a lot of times. I'm so careful, or just go to a different place where there's nobody standing there, nobody nearby. Yeah.
So when a child knows how to do that, he's chayiv in tzitzis. That would be the obligation. Now, of course, this is very interesting because the children
we don't do that with tzitzis.
We don't seem to. We ourselves don't put our tzitzis on that way. And so what exactly is this referring to?
But in the Mediterranean, younger kids do.
What you mean, like the
8-9-year-olds, if they know how to do it, they wear a talis already in shul.
But only during davening.
The German Jews, maybe the German Jews, the Yekis do that. I don't know.
Sephardim also.
Yeah, so Mediterranean Jews. Yeah. Oh
yes, Sephardim do it at a young age under bar mitzvah.
Yes.
No, I didn't say under bar mitzvah.
Yes, but I do definitely under bar mitzvah.
Oh, yeah.
Ezra, tell us, Ezra. We need Ezra over here. Sephardim do it.
Rabbi, the children wear talitot from the time that they're ready to wear it and understand making the bracha, etc. It doesn't begin from the time that they're bar mitzvah or from that they get
Okay, great. All right, so then that fits over here. It sounds like they have a good source. Look at it's our Gemara. Katan, that's the idea. The lesatef is chayv tzitzis. Sounds like they have a good source. We have to figure out how the Ashkenazim, how this.
Get out of it.
Yeah. But okay, so that's a lishmar tefillin. If the child knows how to watch tefillin, not to go into a bathroom with it, or not to pass gas, according to other places can bring other mefarshim. So then is aviv like keach like tefillin. Father has to buy him tefillin. Commentaries discuss why it mentions about buying regarding tefillin. Regarding the other case, it doesn't say buying.
Liknos. Said liknos.
By lulav, it just says chayiv belulav. By tzitzis, chayiv betzitzis. But by tefillin, it's like keach like tefillin. Why tefillin you have to buy? The others it doesn't mention buying. So, I mean, it could be just a practical thing that tefillin are much more expensive, so it mentions the term buying. Could be also the child your chayiv belulav. You could use his father's. He's chayiv betzitzis is only in his garment has 4 corners. He's chayiv in tzitzis. Tefillin you got to go out of your way to buy. The others you don't really necessarily need to buy. Anyway, the commentaries talk about why it mentions like well, that's 2 of the reasons. So then it says, the father teaches him Torah, Torah Sivalana Moshe, Kriya Shema is the first pasuk of Shema. If he knows Lishmar Gufa, so then you can trust him for taharas that touched his body. If he knows how to guard his hands from tuma, so you can trust him on taharas that his hands touch. Yodel Lishal, if he knows how to answer a question when he's asked about yes, no, or he doesn't know. So then there's the laws of tuma apply there. Safek tuma b'rshus hayachid, if it's a questionable tuma in a private domain. So if he was the one who was involved, and he's someone who you could ask, then the law of Safek Tameh applies, kicks in. If he's not a child of age that you could ask, then generally the Safek is Tahar. But the special law of a Safek being Tameh in a Rishus Hayachin in a private domain applies if he's a Yodea Lishar, if he's a child of enough cognizance of knowledge and understand that he can answer, that he knows what he's being asked and he knows to answer the right yes or no, or he doesn't know. Now, Yodea Lifreis Kapov. So now the interesting thing is tefillin is a big discussion, because are we talking about a child here that the father buys him tefillin because he knows how to watch tefillin?
Yes.
We're talking about an adult. So this is a machlekes.
9 years old.
What age do you start doing tefillin?
9 years old.
9 years old? Who starts putting tefillin on at 9 years old?
That's what they did. That's follows the Mishnah. That's what they did. But the kid had to have seichel.
In the time of the Mishnah, they would put it at 9 years old.
Even in the Mediterranean, Egypt, Libya, Syria.
Really? Oh, well. The thing is, it is a machlokes here. Is this talking about a katan, or is it talking about a gadol with regard to tefillin? And the simple understanding of the wording of the brisa of this Tosefta is that it's talking about a child, because it talks about Yodel Lenanea, Lishmar.
So
yeah, it sounds like it's talking about a child, which sounds like what Jeffrey is saying, and that's what some poskim understand. However, the Itur says that this can't be, because we don't. This is talking about, at this point, we're talking about a gadol. We're talking about an adult that he knows how to watch that he knows how to take care of. He's an adult and he knows how to take care of tefillin. So then he would be, you'd have to buy him a pair of tefillin. But it's really talking about a adult and a child. We don't put tefillin on children. And the Ramah brings this as this is the minhag now. Now, the Ramah is the Ashkenazic source of halacha, so the Beis Yosef maybe argues, at least. But the Ramah on the tour mentions that this is that it seems like we follow the Itur here, that you have to translate this as it's talking about a gadol, a person who reaches the age of 13. His father buys him a pair of tefillin. But the simple reading here, and the way some of the Rishonim want to learn, is that it's talking about a child, that actually children would be obligated in tefillin once they know how. It doesn't really fit with the Lubavitch mimer that we have. The child says a mimer, which is emphasizing the whole concept of a child only starts putting tefillin on when he gets moichin the gadlus. This is a whole. So in other words, the mimer fits with the minhag of and fits with the Ashkenazic minhag. It doesn't really fit with the if what you're saying is true, Jeffrey. The Sephardic among Sephardic Yidden, they put on at a young age, I guess.
I don't think everybody, but